All right, so we're on number 7, a crisis averted.
Yes.
Good. Good. Does anybody need that?
Sure.
Good.
Okay,
Yeah?
because I did this one, but I can't find it, I don't know what Bible it's in.
It's Carolyn.
Oh, we have several at home.
They're Carolyn, maybe I'll shoot it to them.
Oh, no, one's for you, one's for Al.
Okay, is there two here? Oh, sorry.
And then I'll pass around for next week.
Number 8.
Number 8, what does it mean to be a martyr, which Pastor Kellen just preached on today.
That was awesome.
He certainly had a long
His
enough
message
text.
was awesome.
Yeah.
Some of these are, yeah,
Right
well,
on.
to get the whole book of Acts in,
Material.
some of them are quite a bit long. Mine was only 7 verses, his was quite long.
I think it was good he didn't read it all.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially with.
Yeah, we went long already.
Yeah.
We were done, just when Alyssa was finishing up her song.
Really?
Oh, really?
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, really.
Yeah,
Okay.
Diana had just started playing the hymn and it was 9.
Wow. Okay,
Well, it's good that got in anyway. She
Yeah.
did a good
yeah,
job.
she does a good job.
Got such a powerful voice for such a little girl.
Mhm. So yeah, it was, well, we had a funeral yesterday, Jim Wilson, and then, so this morning we have baptism, and at 10:30 we have a confirmation.
Oh, really?
All in the
I
same
saw it,
weekend,
I saw
so
it.
Wow.
All facets of.
kind of beginning to end, I guess, yeah.
And
So that's
Mr.
kinda
Dow's missing it all. huh?
Well, he was here for
Oh,
the
he was
funeral,
here.
yeah, he's back.
Oh, he's
He was
back.
back on Friday. He's officially not back until Monday.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, he was,
I see.
he was in the office a little bit on Friday, and then he was here for the funeral. He might be here for the confirmation, I don't know. And then Monday, I'm off for 2 weeks, so I believe Pastor O'Donnell will be teaching this class for the next 2 weeks, I think, as far as I know. All right, so we have a crisis averted. Acts 6, verses 1 to 7. In Acts 6, verses 1 to 7, we have the kind of conflict that could ruin the church, but an honest and open discussion led to a satisfactory conclusion. It is important to note how an internal struggle can sidetrack a congregation from its true mission. Certainly.
Yeah.
Housekeeping details need to be addressed quickly and openly so that the congregation can get back to business, Christ's business. So, and we'll discuss the conflict here. What is recorded is the widows weren't getting taken care of, and we had the Hebrews and the Hellenists, and we'll discuss those in more detail in just a little bit. But that was the main conflict that was being talked about at this time. But obviously, I'm sure there was other conflicts and so on. You know, Moses dealt with so many of people just complaining about things when he had to get, what was it, the 70 or whatever to help them out. So, you know, it wasn't just this, I'm sure, but this is one of the things that was recorded. So, Pastor Borgman in number 1 here kind of goes through the context. So, just to kind of set the stage. So, I'll just read through it. In Acts chapter 6 and 7 serve as a transition to the mission beyond Jerusalem. Remember Acts 1:8 tells the plan of the mission, starting local and then moving out. Up to chapter 6, Peter and John are the leaders and focuses on Jerusalem. In chapter 6, which we started last week, the 12 share their leadership with the 7. At first, the Christian community was strictly Jewish. Then the Hellenistic Jews came in.
Can I read my footnote here?
Yep, go ahead.
I think it's a good one because I didn't know what the Hellenists really were.
Mhm.
But it says, it is commonly understood that Hellenists were Jews who spoke Greek and or adopted some Greek customs, while the Hebrews were more conservative Jews, perhaps largely native of Jerusalem, who spoke Hebrew or Aramaic and abstained from Greek customs. Even in the early church, a certain tension between the two groups was inevitable.
Yep,
You can see that, right?
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, we have it today.
Then Samaritans.
Then Samaritans well, we're not that far yet, but the Samaritans are gonna get in on it, and that's a whole nother thing.
Wow.
And then a eunuch forbidden for full participation in Israel is baptized, which is a great message to us. And then Stephen's speech in chapter 7, which was today, prepared the way by condemning any narrow insistence on law and temple as blindness to the promises of God and labeled as idolatry. And he didn't, well, that's next week, so. We'll see. I'll start going off on a tangent here. So discussion, letter H. In what ways are we blind to the promises of God and so become idolaters?
Well, I put down, we doubt and we worry and we do things that we don't trust God.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
we think we can control things, and that's idolatry, I think.
it is. You know, you bring up worrying. That's a tough one. Anyone that is parents, or
Yeah.
grandparents, or aunts, or uncles, or anybody. That's a tough one, because worrying really is idolatry. When concern is different than worrying.
Yeah.
Okay, worrying is kind of when you cross the line into being irrational, you know, like I do when my daughter just got her driver's license on Friday. You know, you worry, you know, what if a deer runs out, what if someone crosses the center, you know, and you just start obsessing on all these negative things.
Think of all the negative.
That's when you cross the line and worry, and concern turns into worry, which is idolatry, because you're not putting your trust in the Lord. And of course, I pray for her safety,
Right.
Well, yeah.
and that's where it should,
That's where it
that's
should
where it should
stop.
stop, and I should have faith in the Lord that He will watch over her like He always does. But yeah, then you cross that line of worry, and that's when you start, like exactly what you said, so.
And doubting too, when we really doubt that he's gonna do it.
Yeah, when it doesn't happen in our timing, then we doubt if He heard us, or if He's answering us, or when we don't get the answer we want, which happens all the time.
Our focus tends to be on what we don't have as opposed to what we have.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what we have already, not on what we've already been given, but what we want to be given. So it's a trap.
It is a trap, especially when it turns into an obsession, and now you cross over, you know, from First Commandment stuff into coveting and so forth. Yeah, they all work together, those commandments. I put the kind of the same notes you did, Dorothy, for my answer. What I said was, I think that fear is the opposite of faith. When our faith weakens, fear takes over, and we turn to other things, possibly fix it ourselves. And it could be worrying, it could be money, it could be some sort of power, it could be something illegal, or, you know, just, yeah, Marcus.
Related somewhat to what Jack said, whenever the congregation is asked to reach out elsewhere, there often is a reaction, we need everything here. We really can't afford to go to the Dominican.
Yeah.
You know, we need to keep our resources here.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot
That's
more
a
than
tough
other
one.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, but then we see the realities of our bills and day-to-day
Right.
Yeah.
operating costs here, and it scares us, and which,
Yeah.
you know, if it makes us more responsible, that's not such a bad thing. But yeah, you're right. Why should we take care of them when we, you know, and that's kind of, I mean, you're supposed to take care of your own household. I mean, that is part of the housekeeping that is
Right.
being preached here. But yeah, again, there's a line that you can cross, that maybe you should be doing something, but you use it as an excuse not to. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, part 2. Acts 6 verse 1. The disciples were increasing in number, and so were their difficulties. What was the issue?
Anytime you get too many people trying to make decisions, you know what happens. Everybody, you know, there's conflict because you're never going to fully agree on things, and so I think as they grew in number, that's probably what was happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and,
Egos come into play.
yeah, egos come into play, and sometimes it's too many answers, or sometimes, you know, one person thinks the other one is doing it, and the other one, and then it doesn't get done, which
That's
I
true,
think
too.
was maybe the case with the widows. I don't think that was an intentional thing, to not take care of the widows,
Right.
seeing as that was the Jewish customs before Jesus Christ,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Scripture tells us orphans and widows and so on. And certainly, back then, it was certainly an issue, there was no one to take care of them, I mean, they needed it.
It would be like our shut-ins today, if one of the elders said, I thought you were going to visit so-and-so.
Yeah,
And
which-
he said, I thought you were going to visit
Which I hate to
so-and-so."
say does happen once in a
Yeah.
while, where we'll get a phone call and it's like, oh no, how did that happen?
Right,
So unintentional, but it does happen.
And just plain being overworked too, I think, they couldn't do everything,
Right,
you know?
which is a danger.
Here too, they just
Absolutely.
can't do everything.
Let's turn to number 5, so page 3, number 5. I'm just gonna read that over, because this explains really well why there is an issue with the widows and why they needed the help and so on. So many pious Jews in their old age moved to Judea in order to die, be buried, and await the resurrection on the soil of the Holy Land. So if their husbands passed away first, then they would go by themselves to the Holy Land and wait to die. That meant that the widows were no longer near family that would normally care for them, because the whole clan doesn't get up and move, just the widow would. That would normally care for her, which was the custom. Your family took care of, you know, the elders in your family, which it should still be today. So this put the widow's care in the hands of Judaism. The same was true for Christianity. Again, they carried this culture over. In Judaism, the local poor received a weekly gift of money to buy food for a week. Poor strangers received a daily gift of food. So that tells us it was limited, that you were expected, if you were capable, to get back on your own feet and do it for yourself. So that's why they limited the local poor, that you got a week of money to buy food. The stranger, if you needed really help and you were a sojourner, we'd help you out. But that was a day-to-day thing. You were expected to get a job, I guess, for lack of a better term. In the church, the widows soon became organized for the care of others. Read 1 Timothy 5, 3-16. These may have been the forerunners of what office?
The deaconess?
The deaconesses, yeah, that's what they figured.
That's what I-
Yeah, that's right. Because the deaconesses to this day are trained to care for others in the mission field and locally and so on.
First Timothy is regarding rules for older widows and younger widows, that's what
Oh.
the passage is about, for those passages. What are the rules?
It's interesting, when we went to Germany that one time, we went to Neuendettelslau, which is a social service city.
Oh,
And they have deaconesses that dress like, kind of like modern day nuns.
oh, okay.
And when they become married, then they're not deaconesses anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it doesn't limit them like the Roman Catholic Church. If you're gonna be
Uh-huh.
a nun, you're, unless you leave the order, and then you're in trouble with the church and everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
So, but then they.
But if you got married, then you're done being a deaconess.
Then you,
Okay.
yeah, you can't serve in that capacity, because then your energies are going into a different,
Uh-huh.
into your marriage, into children.
Kind
Your
of
focus.
on the lines like what St. Paul said, about celibacy, and he said, and which is a gift, which he
Yeah.
claimed to have. Because then it won't interfere with what you're supposed to be doing. You're concentrating, you're focused, and if you get married, then you should be concentrating on your marriage and your family, so that makes sense.
So that was just kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I think it's such the deaconess program in the Missouri Synod is such a great thing, for these young ladies. I mean, the stuff they have to do is just unbelievable. I mean, they are truly gifted and called by God to do what they do. It's amazing. And it's all service, it's all helping people less fortunate, and either physically or mentally or financially or whatever it is. It's a tough job, very tough. So then back, let's go back to number 3 then. So we got a good idea of why there were widows there that needed to be cared for. So calling Christians disciples occurs frequently from this point on, and then Pastor Boardman lists just a bunch of different scripture where it refers to. Matthew 6. What kind of Bible am I reading?
Amen.
Until I'm ready for my vacation. Matthew 16:24 and Acts 9:2. What does it mean to be a disciple? That's going to be a 2-part question. So the first part is, according to Matthew and to Acts, what does it mean to be a disciple? And then what is our definition sitting around this table for a disciple? Follower of Jesus, okay.
Let's take up your cross and follow me, as Jesus said.
Mhm. It is, but it's not just following.
Right.
It's a deny self.
Deny thyself, take up your cross.
Well, they're learning from.
They're
the master.
learning, yes.
They're learning from the master. aren't
Right,
Or
they're
the
not
master
just following and serving Jesus, but they are learning from
teacher.
him.
Yes, yes. From
Um,
his example and also from his teaching,
Yep.
preaching,
Yep,
little sermonettes and so forth.
so that is, so all of those things put together, that's a great definition of disciple from Scripture. Do we have a different definition today, or what, how do we? If I said to you right now, I'm going to do some discipleship training, what is the first thing that pops into your mind that I'm going to be teaching or doing or asking of you?
Evangelism.
Yep. Okay.
That E-word.
Yeah. Yeah, I think somehow along the line it's gotten a bad rap.
Yeah.
Just like stewardship.
Just like yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's all about money.
yeah. So,
And really, lately, it just seems like evangelism now is more, I mean, not more, but it could also be described as how we learn in apologetics. I mean,
Mhm.
really just defending what you believe when
Mhm.
you're talking, when you're witnessing
Mhm.
to people. And so maybe maybe not put a different spin on it, but maybe, start explaining it that way. People
Mhm.
aren't so, oh, no, not evangelism, so,
which what you're saying starts to turn us back to the original definition of it.
yeah.
Because I agree with you, when I say discipleship training, I'm guessing about 80% of the people, that's what pops in there. Oh, evangelism, I'm gonna have to go out and talk to people. Yeah, but, but you're gonna be prepared to.
Right.
And we can follow Jesus and learn from him by reading his word. So, decent discipleship training is just that, training. And following Jesus, just as if he was here walking in front of us and teaching us, we have his word to learn from. What an incredible gift. And then through that, you gain your confidence, you gain your knowledge, and then you can't help but proclaim. Evangelism is evangelism is the healthy byproduct of decent discipleship training. Although evangelism is our number one command, that and baptism, but I think if done properly, then that is the way, and a lot of it is apologetics and things like that, to have a defense, as 1 Peter, have a defense for the hope that you have in Jesus Christ, and be able to voice that defense and the reasoning why. And that's as we move forward and our children are taught, especially in public school, and public school has a lot of great things to it. But when it comes to science and biology, they're very one-sided. Even though they claim to, okay, we won't go down that road. But, so it's important for us to teach our children, and here at St. Paul's, we do teach them, we teach them both sides. We teach them evolution and things like that, so they know what to listen for, and they know how to answer to it, like you're saying.
That's good.
You know, I meet with young men and women, and they question these things, they question creation and evolution, you know, there's no proof to evolution. When you know the facts, there's a lot more proof against evolution than there is for it, that's for sure. In fact, there's none for it, when you really dig into it. So, all of these things are important to the discipleship training, which I will be developing in the future, because I think we need it. Number 4.
I kinda covered that, I'm sorry, I've forgotten, this was part of the lesson.
Oh, that's all right, that's all right. The Hellenists and Hebrews threatened to become separate factions. Both were Jewish, so, and like I said in my sermon, you know, you kinda had the liberals and the conservatives is basically what it came down to. Which, you know, what a great thing to read in scripture, showing us that things haven't changed that much, but we can still work to the glory of God if we put the truth first, Him first, get our focus on what it's supposed to be on. We can work together, and especially our culture, we can turn it around through the help of God, of course, and which will come if we turn to Him. So yeah, so we did talk about that quite a bit. So we'll go on to part 3. We talked about number 5. Number 6. This scene is reminiscent of the murmuring about food in the wilderness where 70 elders were appointed, which I just mentioned earlier. The 12 asked the body of believers to choose 7 men of good repute, with good reputations, to be given authority to distribute alms to the poor. Further, this is a delicate task, so they wanted men full of the Spirit and wisdom. Somebody look up and read 1 Timothy 3, 7, and 8, please.
He must also have a good reputation with outsiders, so that he will not fall into disgrace and into the devil's trap. Deacons, likewise, are to be men worthy of respect, sincere, not indulging in much wine, and not pursuing dishonest gain.
Okay, so that, you know, there's qualifications there that we find in Timothy and Titus. And then for the pastoral office, it goes further than that. We have to be the husband of one wife. I don't know if it says that for the deacons though. But they expand on it, the office of the pastoral office
It
expands
does
on it.
say in verse 12, let deacons each be the husband of one wife.
Oh, it does, okay,
All right. Let them manage their children in their households all.
okay. Why would this be important? Kind of an obvious question. Mm-hmm.
Also, I thought, excuse me, Sharon, go ahead.
Well, I thought they were serving a vulnerable group of women, and so it was important, you know, that they could be trusted,
That's a good point, yeah.
and these women had no family or means of support.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. Never thought of that.
I also thought it brought credibility.
Yep.
You know, you're an example. We're all hypocrites, of course,
Mhm.
at certain times and whatever, but you still have to lead add credibility, I thought.
And you would think along with that, there would be respect for, you know, if they are what they're supposed to be. There should be respect for them, and also a respected person in the community. Now, if someone, you know, are we more liable to, as a church congregation, are we more liable at a voters meeting to listen to somebody that stands up and just starts spewing? Or somebody that's a respected member of this congregation that we know is honest and trustworthy, are we gonna listen to them? Who's going to help change people's minds in the right direction and so on? So, it did help with the unity quite a bit, having respected people in these positions, because you just generally trust them and listen to them. And to the point where you might say, well, you know, I thought about that incorrectly, you're actually right. Change a person's ideas, you know. It was interesting, you know, growing up in the church I did, and at our voters meetings, my mother never said a word.
Well, no, and it didn't.
And then she, well, she was able to, but
Yeah.
every once in a while, if it was something she felt strongly about, she would stand up and everybody, you could hear a pin drop. And she would just say what she had to say and sit back down, and it was amazing how many people would turn around and change their minds. Because she was respected, you know, it's the same thing, it's the same thing with this, people trusted her, they knew she didn't have her own agenda or anything, her heart was for the church, and if she said something, they listened, you know.